So, good evening and welcome to our concert tonight at the Live Lab. Just get my notes. This is actually our 19th annual NeuroMusic Keynote concert. And so we've been doing these for quite a while, but we have a really special one tonight. I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. So McMaster University recognizes and acknowledges that it's located on the traditional territories of the Mississauga and Haudenosaunee nations and within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. And we know that music has been made on these lands for a very long time, and we honor these traditions as we seek to understand the importance of music to human societies. I'd like to just take a minute to thank our sponsors who make these Live Lab concerts possible. So we acknowledge the Insight Foundation for the Arts, McMaster University Alumni Association, TD Insurance, Longham Cade, Julie Marcel's Real Estate. We thank all of them for their generous support. Within McMaster, we'd also like to thank the University Vice President Research Office, Faculty of Science, and the Department of Psychology, Neuroscience, and Behavior. I also want to take a moment to give a shout out to the Mohawk College broadcasting students. They're live streaming the concert for us tonight, and this support ensures that we have accessibility to the concert for those who can't make it in person. And then some exciting news. At tonight's concert, we're also running a study. The performers are going to be wearing, you'll see they'll have little headbands on their heads from which we can track how they're moving as they interact while they're playing. So we want to know, are their movements synchronized? Do they read each other from their movements about how they're going to play? And does that help them to interact? So we'll see. Now for this, we need to synchronize our audio recordings with our motion capture system. And so I believe Emily is going to come out and give the cue. There you go. So that makes it official. This is an official study. Okay, so finally, I want to welcome Peter Vuust and the trio. It's really a pleasure to have them here. Peter Vuust effortlessly combines jazz music performance and scientific excellence. As the leader of the Danish National Research Foundation's Music and the Brain Center, he's published over 150 scientific papers, and he's a world-renowned expert in the field of music and the brain. At the same time, he's also a remarkable jazz bassist and a composer, leading the Peter Vuust Quartet, and he's collaborated with many jazz legends worldwide. And tonight we're in for a special treat because we're joined by the Peter Vuust Trio, which features Tommaso Perazzo and Michael Vuust. Rooted in bebop and swing traditions, their music is a fusion of Nordic and American influences. So get ready to enjoy a mix of classic American songbook tunes and original compositions that'll take us on a musical journey like no other. So please, oh, you know what? I forgot. I really have to, that's it. It's been a long day. We had our annual conference today, which was fantastic, and actually Peter talked at it this morning and gave an amazing presentation. So we're really looking forward to tonight, and now I want to welcome the trio to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would just like to thank Laurel and all the others. I can't begin to explain how friendly and cool they have been during these last couple of days. And it's just such a pleasure and a thrill to have the opportunity to also play for you guys. And especially since on the drums, it's Mikkel Vuust, my son. Who didn't come all the way from Denmark as I did, because he lives in New York and goes to Manhattan School of Music. But also, I would like you to welcome on the piano a person I've never played with before today, so we'll see how it goes, but it's Tommaso Perazzo. Yeah. We'll be playing some mostly tunes that I've written, and I'll be talking a little bit about it's like there is a sound. Ooh. Yeah, anyway, yeah, I don't know whether it's this one, it probably is. Oh. Yeah. So, anyway, so we'll be playing mostly my songs, maybe one or two standards, we don't know yet, but we haven't decided on which ones to play. But I hope you'll enjoy it, and I'll speak a little bit along the way about what we're doing here, and actually also there is something we have to get rid of. It might be this one. No? Um, so I'll be speaking a little bit about it, what we're doing along the way. Some of it will be more scientific than others. Some will mostly be what I think. So I hope you will enjoy it. You know, you are allowed to clap after the solos. It's, I mean, only, of course, if you like it. Yeah, it's only tip if you really think it's been good. Anyway, so yeah, this was a song that I wrote many years ago when I had just bought a house. And the thing was that I bought it from this real estate broker, which it's resonate exactly with my voice. This real estate broker that there was this company called Home, and they were really, I mean, they messed everything up. So I named this song Homesick. So yeah, that's why. Anyway, but I would like to start by just explaining a little bit about what we're doing when we play this kind of music, which is of course jazz and improvised jazz, because most of it, of course, we have the notation, and notation is actually a pretty good thing when you haven't played before. But what we use is mostly our ears, of course, to communicate. Many years ago, I wrote a book on the Miles Davis quintet from the 50s. And one of the things I highlighted in that book was the fact that when they are communicating, they're actually like speaking a language. If you would ask any jazz musician, why do you play jazz, and what is so special about jazz, is that you have here a setting where you can actually communicate without words. I know it's super trivial in a way, but this is what makes it so fantastic, because we have a lot of things that we are saying to each other all the time. And if you just humor me and think of this as a language, just briefly, then if you look at communication models, as for instance Roman Jakobsen, the great, he was originally Russian, but he spent some time in Denmark, and he wrote this he made this model of communication. And the idea he had was, I'll see if I can do this without a slide, but the idea he had was that there's a message that has to be sent between two people, so you have a sender and a receiver. That's very simple. And you also have a context that it's in. We have a context here. There are lots of things that goes into that context, but that's one thing. But there's also a code that it's sent in, and there's also a channel through which it's sent. This channel is of course auditory, but it could be emails, whatever it could be. So this was not the interesting part of his research, but what he showed was that to all these different factors, as he called them, there would be a function. So, for instance, one sentence or one utterance could have a function, one kind of function. For instance, I could, those functions would be corresponding to the different factors. So, as an example, I could say to my son Mikkel, "Don't touch the piano." That could have been said over time at a certain point of time. So that would focus on the receiver. Whereas I could also express, "Oh, I'm so tired today." That would be focusing on myself. Or I could say hello. That would be focusing on the channel. Or I could say, well, it's interesting with this word, because in one instance it means one thing, and in another it means a different thing. So there are all these different functions that you use. But while we are playing in music, especially in jazz, when you look, and I transcribed, the whole rhythm section on a lot of these Miles Davis songs, and what you can see is that they have what they are playing to each other have all these functions. For instance, you can open a channel by making something. If we're playing and they might be communicating about something rhythmic, then I could do something to say, I'm also here, or whatever. So I would open a channel to one of them, for instance. That's of course a very simple thing. But one thing that we do, for instance, if we talk about the context, this is called the referential function. And for instance, often when we play jazz music, we would be citing somebody else. It could be, for instance, Miles Davis. He would always play like this when he played a blues. At a certain point of time, he would play. So, like he would. This was, of course, be When the Saints, but he would be quoting that to have. That would have a referential function. So that's very common. But another function that is maybe the most important function in jazz music, that would be the metalingual function, which would be, for instance, if we are playing like the song we were playing here, for instance, in the B part it goes to this chord, B flat major 7 chord, but the next chord would be the E flat. Just follow me on this. But very often in this case I would be staying on this one. So I would say, oh, we can actually discuss how this chord should be sounding. Or I could play, so instead of going to this, I would be going here, and maybe I would be going down like this. And of course, Tommaso hears this immediately, and he will respond with something else. This thing is just going on all the time while we're playing. And another thing would be the tritone substitution, which some of you might have learned over time. Anyway, so this is what we're doing, and we are doing that especially when we are playing standards, for instance. Like we're playing songs that we haven't written ourselves, because it's easier in some way. They're made for doing all these kind of communication things, or that's often why we play standards, because they're easy for us. That's like a language we can speak, even though we have never played together. We know the language here. So what I would like to do now was a little experiment with you guys, because we are going to play something completely free. We don't know yet what it's going to be, but we would like you to help us start it out. So I would like to have 3 notes from you guys. I mean, there are 12 notes, so please give me one. Yeah. B flat or E? B flat. B flat. Yeah, that's a B flat. Next one. G. C sharp. So now we'll just play something. We won't do it for too long, because it might be with B flat, G, C sharp. So, just to show you the concept of what we're doing. But we are doing this also when we play all the other material we're doing. It might not sound like this, but this is what we strive for. So now we'll play a standard jazz tune, and we haven't decided yet on what we should play. So, yeah, we'll do that. That's good. Good suggestion. So we'll do Autumn Leaves. That's fine. but we need to talk about rhythm. And the thing is that a lot of the things that we're doing and the communications we are doing are actually all about rhythm. So, and you can probably also hear that when we're playing, there's a lot of rhythmic stuff going on, and a lot of this is what in broad terms we would call polyrhythms. In musicology, that would not be the right term because it's actually 2 or 3 or 4 different things. One of the things we would be doing would be what is known as polyrhythms, which is when you have a 4/4 meter here and you have a 3/4 meter on top. So it could be like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But now comes the trick, because you could actually play around with that in tonal sense. So if I play this thing, you have this rhythm, then you can play. So you see, so the tonal stuff can induce a completely different meter. What happened here was that you have the 4, which is what we are playing in, and then you have the 3 on top. But with the 3 on top, I'm actually playing a melody that is naturally in, which is boogie woogie woogie. It's in 4, so you'll actually be doing what we call cross rhythms here. And that means cross rhythms are basically when you have this bar, but then you might extend it and it becomes a different meter altogether. That's one thing to do. And that we will be doing usually a lot of. But another thing that we would be doing would also be that we would mess around with the downbeat. And I'll just show you a little trick so we can play this. So now we'll just give you the rhythm, and I'll show you what I actually did now. So we'll just do it, Mikkel and I. So we'll go. So what happens here is that I move the beat one step to one of the sides, and that means you might think that you're going along with the beat, but actually you're on the wrong foot. The reason why we do this is actually pretty simple. When you have harmony, for instance, you can take a harmony like a C major 7, just a simple C major 7. But then you can alter some of the notes. So you can make an altered C major 7. No, no, sorry, it's a C7, a dominant 7. Yes, it's a different language, sorry. Yeah, so you play just a regular C7 chord. But then you can also put some altered note in top, yeah. Yeah, so that creates tension. How to do that rhythmically? Yes, we do that by using polyrhythms all the time. So we create tension between the beat that you should be feeling, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the beat that we are placing on top of, so you create this feeling that things are going apart. So of course you have to do it in a way so everybody still will get back to the downbeat. So sometimes we lose it, because if we can lose it up here, but if we haven't been close to losing it once or twice during a concert, it had been a very, very unsuccessful concert, because you want actually this. It's so super nice. And now we'll play a song, small song, to just just to make sure that we might lose it, because we're going to play a song I wrote in 5. It's called High Five. So it's in 5. You could try to keep track of the 5 beat along the way. You can count if you like. It goes like this. Yeah. So Yeah. Yeah. I had a very good friend, drummer, who died years ago. He was somewhat older than me, but he always said, "Well, jazz, that's toys for adults." And it's kind of truthful. But you can then say, "But what about emotion?" So how? I mean, if it's only communication, what about emotion? And I think what actually happens in jazz is that we will shift between these areas of the music where we are more communicative, and sometimes we'll go into stuff that is more emotional. And it will always have this swing, so there will always be this feeling of pleasure while we are doing it, but sometimes you want more emotion in it. And the next song or the last song in the first set, will be a song that was very emotional for me because I wrote it when Mikkel was born. And he came out and I thought he looked so peaceful. Little did I know. But I wrote this song called Young Blue Eyes. It's here. It comes here. Yeah. Give a big hand to Tommaso Prato. Woo! Mikkel Vuust. Mikkel Vuust. Tomato. We'll give you 15 minutes break. Thank you very much. I think, Lauren?
All right. Hello. Okay. You might have noticed a change in their attire. Um, Everyone here is wearing mobile eye tracking glasses, so this is a new technology that we're working with in the Live Lab. And Peter's been talking all night about communication and emotion, and actually we can learn a lot about that from looking at eye movements, and not only spatially, so when do the musicians look at each other, that can tell us something about, are they focused internally doing their solo thing, are they really communicating, riffing off each other, but also temporally, so does everyone shift their gaze at the same time, or how does what the drummer's playing relate to when their when they make eye movements, right? Because actually your eyes are one of your fastest motor effectors, so we can think about how the motor system as a whole is working together in these really complex contexts. So they're very kind to wear these for one piece, and I know that the pianist actually wears glasses, so it's kind of a challenge to play without them. So thank you. I can take it from you if, yeah. You brought your glasses here, right? Okay.
Otherwise, I keep this.
I appreciate it.
Thank
Oh, I have so much gear.
What is it? Do you need?
There you go.
Thanks. Thank you all.
Fine, I'm good. Yeah, Tommaso just said before, in the first set we were only Mickey Mouses. In the second set we were Mickey Mouses with glasses. So, yeah, anyway. So, of course, what we started the second set was a standard, a favorite of most jazz musicians, All the Things You Are. We played it in 7, so we had to cut one beat each measure. So every second measure, anyway. So, and one of the reasons why we did this was, of course, also to have some music that were like danceable. But of course, you have to train your 7 dance a little bit in order to do this. But one thing that we've been talking a lot about in this conference is the concept of groove, or it's also called the pleasurable urge to move to music. And this is, of course, something that is so important when we play jazz and salsa and other kinds, and rock, of course, all these kinds of music. And one thing that is a big thing at this conference and in the NeuroMusic community is the so-called inverted U shape. And it means that if you have very simple rhythms, then you get bored, your brains will get bored, you won't move to 2 simple rhythms. If you have 2 complex rhythms, you cannot find the beat, and you say, it's just noise to me. But right in the middle, we have a sweet spot where the inverted U has a peak. And here in the middle, we actually like where the rhythms are complex, but not as so complex so that you don't want to move. And I will just illustrate this to you, just very simple. We have done this before in this conference, but some of you might not, and some of you might not have tried to do this. And that's to do what we call a syncopation. And this would go like something like this. You have 4 beats like this, and then and you clap it with me. Okay, I hope that you all noticed that we are completely together on the first and the second beat, but where the syncopation comes, we're kind of like, it sounds like this, right? And this is basically because the brain, when we have rhythm, are divided into things. One is tracking the beat, we call it the meter, and another one is tracking the other thing, which would be the syncopation. And when they are aligned, there's nothing to sort of get confused about, but it's also super boring. As soon as we as we move this one, then you suddenly have to become more alert, probably there will be some dopamine release because now you actually have to do something actively to maintain this, and in order for your brains to do that, there will have to be more adrenaline, and this is coexist with also dopamine. So you might also feel pleasure with this, and there are many. This is a much longer story, but in principle, this is why we move to music, or at least this is in the thing in the music that makes us want to move. And so you need these things that are these syncopations that are not on the beats in order for music to really make you want to dance. And this is different in different styles of music. In some styles of music, like much of the James Brown music, you will have for every measure, every 1, 2, 3, 4, you will have an amount of what you could say an optimal amount of syncopation, and you'll just keep repeating that, so you'll have this thing, and the more you do it, the more you actually want to move to music. That's another story, but in jazz it's different. In jazz we would like it to be, sometimes we don't have any syncopations, then we have more syncopations, then we have less syncopation, and so forth. So that's why jazz is not as danceable as James Brown, but the good thing about moving up and down is that you actually can direct your attention and your energy in the music up and down, and that creates a more flexible feeling, a dynamic feeling when you're listening to jazz. We're going to play a song here, which is actually a song that I wrote to my other song, and he was when he was, I mean, you never know what happens when they grow up, right? But when I looked at him, I thought he was really, there was some motion in this guy. He was all over the place. So I wanted something that would be moving, and his name is Frederick, so I called this song Hey Fred. And you will notice that it has a danceability, it has syncopation, but when we play it, we will probably also change how much it will be moving you along the way. Yeah, let's go. Yeah. So, you probably noticed that these guys, they have been practicing a lot. And I would like to talk a little bit about the thing about being a musician and practicing. Because you can say that there are many different things as a musician, especially as a jazz musician, you would have to practice. Of course, there are all the motor skills, the stuff where you actually do, and so forth, and learn to do the motor stuff. And if you look at the brain, there are so many different studies that have shown what happens when you train your motor system. For instance, really good piano players have been shown to have more gray matter tissue in the, or that's a little bit wrong, but largely, I don't know how to say this in English, but more cortical areas for the right hand, which is actually here in the left hemisphere, than in the other hemisphere to the left hand. So the way you practice will actually probably change the way your brain looks anatomically. But if you play the instrument like I play, we don't do much. The stuff that we're doing down here is pretty simple. This is where the difficult stuff happens. So the anatomy of a string player would be different than the anatomy of a piano player, for instance. But that's sort of the kind of simple stuff. What this actually, the most important thing that you'll be practicing as a jazz musician is your ears, the way your brain will respond in different situations. And for that, there are many studies that shows that, for instance, we have these studies where you have a pattern and then you change a feature, and then you can see a response when you're changing this feature. It could be rhythm, it could be pitch, and so forth. But you can actually see that differentially in different musicians. For instance, if you have, this was a study done by a good friend of mine, Eckhard Altemüller and colleagues. If you have people who are directors of, for instance, symphony orchestra, then if you have a note appearing in a place, in a location here, and you change the location just slightly, they will be responding stronger to this small thing than normal musicians, because composers, they need to all the time have a very good spatial sense of who is it that is playing the wrong note is it the first or the second trumpet, and so forth. So all these things you can actually measure in the brain. But this is not what I'm going to talk to you about or tell you about here. I would like to tell you a little trick that all good musicians know. And the trick is actually called, you could call this, I would say, I'm having a hard time finding the English words, but I would probably call it awareness, automatization, and relaxation. These two things would be the important thing. And I'll try to show it to you. We did earlier here, I showed a study where we are doing this thing where we are saying 1, 2, 3, 4. You can do that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, thanks. And then you go like this while you're doing it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So that's not very easy. So now I would like to do let's call it awareness and automatization and relaxation. So I would like to do this with you. So none of you could probably do this. We'll take the last bit of this. So we'll take the last, I think I'll just put this down. So if we take, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll take the last measure. So it's the 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what I want you to learn now. And let's raise our awareness of it first. So what is it actually? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's pretty easy. So it's actually 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have notes going on like this, and then on the 3 you would go away and then put notes again. Usually I have a slide that makes it easier, but so I'll do it slowly again. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So you actually are just going ahead with your 8 notes here, and on 3 you don't play. Okay, that's the awareness. I hope that was clear. So what we will be doing is now to do it super slowly. Okay, humor me with this. Okay, so you just do what I do. So we'll take one at a time. We'll add a note once in a while, but you just do exactly what I'm doing. You don't do anything else that I'm doing. So we're going 1. Okay, that's really bad. We do it again. 1. Okay, is that hard? That's pretty easy. 1. Okay, then we do 1. 1, 2. Could you please say the numbers a little louder? So, 1, 2. We'll do that again. 1, 2. Okay. So, you remember it was awareness, automatization, and relaxation. How relaxed do you feel on a scale from 1 to 10? I feel that when I look at you, you have your shoulders here. So now we'll take the shoulders down, and we do a small exercise that all golf players. I was taught that as a kid. I played elite golf when I was a kid, and I was taught this small, very simple breathing exercise. It's just you breathe in through your nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose, out through the mouth. One more time. In through the nose, out through the mouth. So 3 times is enough. It works every time. You can see that if you watch golf tournaments, something that I do, you can actually see how they are doing this. All golfers know this trick. We'll stay down here, and then we'll start all over again. We'll add 1 in a time. Okay, you follow me. So 1. 1, and stay relaxed. 1, 2. 1, 2. We do this a couple of times to automatize it. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Okay, that's good. Now comes the hard part, because you have to say 3 without actually clapping. So we'll only take the 3 and the 4. And when you're doing 3, I want you to do like this. 3. I only do that because you're so nice. It's so nice to look at you when you're doing this. So 3, 4. Okay. 3, 4. 3, 4. Stay relaxed. 3, 4. Very important. Just a small thing. You can't be super relaxed and produce energy at the same time. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to play like this guy can, or that guy. So you have to produce some more energy also with your numbers, but still stay relaxed. Okay? 3, 4. 3, 4. 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4. Thanks. So now we do it from the top as slowly as possible. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Energy. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. And then you can go home and practice the rest of it. Give yourself a hand. But just to tell you why I taught you this. Now, the principle was, and I don't know the English words, but I think you get my meaning, the awareness or consciousness. So you're completely conscious about what you're actually going to learn. Then automatization, while at the same time being completely relaxed. And if you think about the brain, one principle about the brain, and this is of course a gross oversimplification, is that the longer down in the brain you are, the more unconscious it is. The further up you come and the further out, you can say, in the cortex, the more conscious your processing will be. And you have a motor system that is divided in this part up here, which is super conscious but super slow. And the automatization that would be lower down in the cerebellum and in the basal ganglia, which is unconscious but much faster. So what you're actually doing is you're starting up here and then you're trying to put it down in the automatized thing so that you can sort of free your energy in the brain to do other stuff. Or actually, when you think about if you play a scale in the beginning, you will have to think about all the notes, and in the end, you'll just go boom. That will be your more overall thought. So this thing where you have the consciousness first and then you automatize it, that's more or less how the brain is organized. But at the same time, you'll have to be relaxed, because if you're not relaxed, if you try to get tense, then you'll change the neurotransmitter soup in the middle of your brain. And if you change that soup, if you teach your brain that you have to change that soup in order to perform this stuff, then it'll be different every time you do it, and you will probably also be tense in your body. So this you have to control by learning to relax while you're doing difficult things. Now we'll play a song that is not that easy to play. So all the rest has been super easy. But we'll play this song. I termed it Giving Birth many years ago. I have no idea why. But I wrote it in Spain. And yeah. Should we just play it?
Sure.
Yeah. Dun, dun. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for tonight. Tommaso, Perazzo, Mikkel Vuust, Peter Vuust. Thanks so much for coming. B4. Okay, we do have an extra, and like we call it, it's called an encore here, I think. But yeah, this song I wrote, last one we're going to play for you, is a song that I actually made my third record in a studio in Oslo. Where Keith Jarrett has made most of his 70s records, the ones that it's called My Song, Belonging. All these were made in the studio with this technician that we had, and it was just amazing to come in that studio, and he would have the original master. It would just say My Song. It was just lying around in the studio, and this is a very big studio. And it's very quiet, and you know it gives you a really fantastic mood when you're there. And the technician, he never says a word. It's like the only thing he would be saying, yeah, the tape is rolling. And then so he didn't say anything to me until 3 days later, when we were mixing. And I was sitting with him alone. He wasn't saying anything, and I was just thinking, okay. And then he said to me, "This song I like," he said. So, and it didn't have a name. And when we had finished, I was lying in the studio on the big loudspeakers, and I was listening to the whole record. And then this came as the last one, and I was just thinking, oh, I know the name now. It should be The End of a Perfect Day. And this is what we're going to play for you as the encore. it. Yeah.
So thank you so much. It was amazing. We all enjoyed it tremendously. Just before you leave, don't forget our next concert is December 8th, live in the alley. We'll be playing, which is amazing too. So these wonderful musicians have agreed that they'll stick around for a few minutes here, and we can have a bit of a Q&A. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, so if we could have the house lights up. Then, if anybody has any questions, you've been so generous in telling us so much about the process in the brain and what it means and everything. But if people have questions, now's your chance. Yes.
It was kind of riffing off the idea that you were talking about in the first explanation about communication between the musicians. It also made me think about like direction, like where that conversation is going between the musicians. And if that, like, how is that factored, or like is that something people think about as well? Like where they need to take that conversation, if that makes sense.
I think this is one of the most important thing, because there are many things. It sounds easier when you say it than it is in fact. It takes a lot of years until you actually understand exactly this, because often in the beginning you'll just like go in circles. So, but I think one of the things that really good musicians like these guys will be doing is that they won't listen so much to what's actually being said, but to where it will end, and what is the potential of what they are saying. Oh, he plays this polyrhythm, I could maybe chip in with this interesting different or slightly different variation or something completely different. And these choices are made. I think this is something that I think is a big myth in the jazz, in the way we speak about jazz. Because many star jazz musicians would just be say, well, everything just happens. I'm just listening, and then I'm getting absorbed, and then everything happens by itself. That's just not how it is. I mean, I wouldn't know for Keith Jarrett, of course, but that's another planet. But for most of us living here, what actually happens is that in order to be good at this and improvising and communicating, we have to let as much happen by itself, by the body itself, as possible. But we always have something running, the conscious thing running down here, and you can say, okay, now we actually lost, or this is the hard chord. This is a hard chord to play on, so we can go down and back. But we try to stay in the, you can say, unconscious, or at least the automatic level as much as possible. But we have the other thing running just below, so that we can grab hold of it when things are at some instances, and it's simply necessary. Also, like when we were playing here, we would be discussing when the solo would be ending, and we do that by thinking about it constantly. Okay, I actually want to take another chorus, so I'll give a little bit more energy here in the end of the chorus too. This is of course something that you can feel, but in principle there's still the consciousness running just below the surface. Okay, I hope that was that was an answer. I don't know whether it was to that question, but it was an answer.
I don't know, do either of you want to add to anything? No? Other questions? Yes, Tony.
Yeah, I was interested in what you were saying about. Oh,
right.
thanks, Susan. I was interested in what you were saying about all the putting all that practice in, but I was curious. Your very, very first performance of all three of you, like, how was it? Like, all of a sudden you had to ad lib and improvise, and did you ever feel stuck, or how did it go?
You can ask the other guys.
Okay, okay, Tommaso.
Big responsibility. Is Yes. Okay. Wow. Yeah, it's a very interesting question because it was the first time of us performing together, and this is one of the things I like most of this music, the surprise effect. You know, that I talked with Peter at the phone, but I never played with him before, and so you have a responsibility, of course, to the audience. So the preparation is very important. So Peter sent me the music, I checked it out, tried to understand the concept behind, and practice by myself. That's very important because otherwise, when you play, of course, you have some tension in it. So you have to be more than prepared in order to avoid mistakes or things that happen that you cannot, expect. But in the actual stage, of course, there were moments, of like that we were together, and it felt amazing. Some mistakes happened, and some decision. For instance, as a pianist, I think I have, in a trio like this, in a setting like this, I have to take many choices. For instance, about the endings sometimes, and we didn't prepare some of those. We just, went with the moment. But it's hard because maybe you start thinking, oh, now I have to end the song, but you cannot think about it because otherwise you lose the moment. So you have to be, in a way, unconscious and just follow the music, but at the same time, your brain is kind of active. It's weird. It's hard to describe it, The best way is the relaxation he was talking about. I think it's very important because if you are relaxed, then you let it go. And but yeah, in general, I had fun. And yeah, how about Mikael? What?
Yeah. You were asking about my first experience performing.
No, with this.
Oh, with this?
Yeah, like we haven't played before. Ah.
Did you mean this or the very first?
Actually, I meant the first, but I like the answer for this one too.
Okay, but yeah, I don't know if I remember my first performance, but I will say there's like, and this is a continuous thing with being a musician. It's like you live and learn. You make so many mistakes, and then you figure out, oh, this doesn't have the effect that I intended, and then you try to rectify it somehow the next time you play. But and then sometimes you have a concert where everything just feels like, oh, it went great, and then you listen back to it and you're just like, man, I was tripping. But and then other times you feel like, oh, it went awful, and then it sounds great. So yeah, it's a very mysterious thing in a sense. But yeah, you live and learn is my answer to that. Yeah.
I would actually like to say something about it. It's again not an answer direct to your question, but the last song that we played. Most of the songs that when I go in the studio with my band, it's the first takes we use. Like, even if we think, oh, there were some mistakes, we'll do it again. So to correct the mistakes, we end up using the ones with the mistakes on. If you think about Kind of Blue, if you look at Sketches of Spain, for instance, the slow song, you can find at least 11 wrong bass notes on that track, but you get used to it and then it's fine. But on this track, which is actually, I think it's I can still listen to it, which doesn't go for all the recordings that we made. But this last song, for the original recording, we were playing, and we had agreed that I should play the last solo should be a bass solo. So we were playing, and we get to the top of the song, and I'm supposed to be playing the bass solo, but I had forgotten it. So for the first 8 bars, I was just going doom, 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 and it's like forever. And then suddenly I realized, oh, I'm supposed to be. So this solo comes out of it. But those 8 bars are the best 8 bars on the record. They're so calm, and then when I get out of it, it's like you know there's something coming up through. You have this water, and then something comes up of the water, right? And I think this is why jazz is so super nice to be playing. Like this concert, like we have never played before, and it was so easy to play. Of course, like Tomas say, if we had played a small tour or whatever, there wouldn't have been these mistakes. But if you, I guess, if you listen to it, you will say, there's a little, it's a little, what can you say? There are these corners that are not completely tidy, right? But that makes it live. So I love that. That's what I love about jazz. Also, this is the only style of music where you can just go anywhere on the planet, and if you find the right level of musicians, you can do really meaningful conversations with them.
Yeah, I might actually just ask a follow-up question, which is, I think part of what you're saying is the spontaneity is more important than perfection, in a sense, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder, in general, now that we have recordings, I mean, for most of human history, we had no way of recording music, so it was always, in a way, spontaneous, right? But now when it's recorded and people can go back and listen to it and say, oh, they made a mistake here and there, is it different? Like, what is the difference between like just playing a concert like this and going into a recording studio where you sort of have this other mindset?
Yeah, but I was thinking about it today because we, of course, discussed what you can do here is you can actually see how you're moving when you're playing in front of an audience and compare it to a studio situation. And I made 6 studio records and 1 live, and I kind of prefer the live one, even though the sound is worse because you can make better sound in the studio. And if you think about Keith Jarrett, for the last 30 years, he's only been recording live music. And yeah, and the difference is it gets in the studio, it gets dry, it gets perfect. It is, and it's hard to say why you cannot do it in the studio. It's just not possible without the people being there. So this social aspect of the music. I was thinking of one thing with this difference between. No, I forgot it. I've been answering so many questions these days. I'm kind of.
Hi, good evening, gentlemen. My name is Frank. I'm a student here, and I really enjoyed your performance. And the question I have is, what differences do you find in expressing emotions when you're improvising as opposed to following a more rigid and predetermined arrangement?
To me, that's very simple, because when I do stuff that is written, it's almost impossible for me to express anything. So I think that's just. It's also a personal thing. How is your personality? It's really hard for me. I was not much of an authority follower when I was a kid either. So yeah. But I think that's different from different personalities and what you have been brought up with. So that would be I would actually. No. I'm. Yeah.
That's an interesting question. I've never really thought about it in that way, but I think one thing that I think is difficult when you talk about like emotions and performing. I feel like there's a lot of emotions. Like it's not just like, oh, I want to express a sad emotion and then it's sad. Like there's a lot of, it's like, if you look at a Van Gogh painting, it's not like, oh, this is sad. It's like, no, it's like, it's many different feelings that comes from it. So of course there's like, I mean, I'm kind of going off track from your question. I'm sorry about that, but I think it's a really interesting question about like expressing emotions in art or in performative art, because it's like, it's not that, to me at least, it's not that direct. It's not like I'm just like, oh, this is the feeling I want you to have, here you go. It's kind of like I'm just, yeah, kind of tapping into this very like calm place in my whatever, my body, and then I'm trying to trying to just let the music. I know this is kind of contrary to what he was talking about before, but it is kind of coming of itself, like the expressiveness and the emotions is what I would say. Yeah.
I would like to add one thing, not to this, but to the other comment actually. The thing about perfection, because I think when we play in a live audience, it will be less perfect, but we'll be faster at correcting the mistakes because simply we have this heightened attention, this thing, we have to make it work. I mean, there's no way back. In the recording studio, you can always cut off and say, oh, we'll take it one more time. And I think that's a big difference. And I think it's a big problem for the music nowadays that we are making it more and more perfect, because it's actually the imperfections that gives you the personality and the emotions. I made 2 records, one in 2005 and one in 2014 with a singer. And I have written these songs, and on the first one, and she's a beautiful singer. I mean, she sings beautifully. That's what I want to say. She's probably also beautiful, but she sings so beautifully. And you know, the first record was really nice. And on the second one, she was still fantastic singer, but we had the method of correcting the false notes. And we did that. We had this chorus. We would just be correcting a little bit, and then okay, now the other part sounded a little bit off, so we would also correct it. And then, but now this song was sounding different than the others, so we ended up correcting the whole record, and I never listened to it. It's compared to the other one, it's so boring. So.
Hi, my name is Jessie Teach. I'm from U of T, and I was at the lecture today. And beautiful talk earlier, beautiful performance this evening. I was curious about the improvisation that you did. I found it to be the most evocative piece that you did this evening. I'm also a jazz singer, so I'm attuned to a lot of the structure of jazz, and I'm used to hearing the songs. I can recognize the melody right away, but once you were just given three notes, and you were just said, hey, let's go, I noticed a lot of conversation between the pianist and the bassist, where you're back and forth and you're echoing each other, and the drummer's listening in and adding little just extra pieces in there. It's a conversation, but there's also some sense of leadership that has to happen, and I think that ebbs and flows because you also kicked it up into a groove. Can you speak a little bit about leadership? Because oftentimes in more structured standard music, the leadership is carried in the melody or whoever is soloing, right? And so I'm just kind of curious if you could speak on that just a little bit.
If I just would start, and then they can chip in, then this was actually also what I suggested earlier, and the reason why we did it was that I said if we want to study leadership, you shouldn't go with what we know already, where there's a structure, where the only thing is, do I start or will he start the solo, right? Here you will exactly, when you don't have a tempo and if you don't have anything else than this small structure, you can actually see how the leadership will be changing dynamically and not like in fixed spaces and so forth. And what we were trying to get at was also the body movements that would be. That's why we have the Mickey Mouse gear. I guess we could. Thanks. So that you can actually study that. That was the idea behind it. It's something that I actually often do just in concerts, also not in concerts like this, which is talk and of course the talk and a concert, because I feel that when you have done that once, it frees up this thought of doing that in the other songs also. You get a little bit away from it also. Like I said in the beginning, it's easier to do this kind of thing with a standard jazz standard, because it doesn't have so many things that you need to do in order for them to work. Most compositional music will have all these kicks and these places that need to be there, and then you sort of interrupt that, and that's why jazz standards are so nice to be playing. So yeah, so I agree with you. That was what I wanted to say. So maybe you can chip in.
Do you do a lot of free jazz?
Yeah. First of all, very nice question. And I don't do a lot of free jazz, honestly. Like, it happened, for instance, I never did a record of free jazz, like pure. So usually there were also structures, maybe a couple of tunes, but so it happens when maybe we're doing like a jam session, or we're just meeting with some friends, and then maybe we try to do a tune, free jazz. But it's nice because you have the freedom, and also someone has to take some responsibility. So someone has to start, and then you decide if to wait or to follow, and hopefully you get into the music, so you don't have to think about these decisions because it just comes natural. But yeah, you're very exposed because you're there. You don't know where it's gonna go. You don't know how long it's gonna be. And you have to listen a lot to the other musicians, and take decisions and go for it. So it's a nice experience, yeah.
There's one thing with free jazz, and that is the most difficult thing you can do as a jazz musician. It's actually amazing that it worked out. It sometimes it doesn't work out, but this actually, in my opinion, also worked out. And but the problem is that if you do a whole evening of free jazz, you lose your audience very easily. So I like it in these kind of restricted spaces where you and the reason why I ask the audience, and I do that also in concerts, that's also to make the audience first of all participate, but also realize that it is actually something that we can do without and there is no such thing as free jazz, because there will always be, you will create a frame, even though you say we're just playing free, you create some kind of frame. For instance, this frame was that we didn't have a tempo, but then tempo happened.
Yeah.
And that's a new frame, and that's because we are constrained by the thing that we have to tell a story. It's like if you have too much without tempo, you want a little bit of tempo in order. So, yeah.
Okay, well, we've been talking for a little while. It's been really informative and interesting. Thank you so much. And thanks to the audience for coming, and one more round of applause for the amazing concert.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. You do me a favor. Okay, thank you. Data. Data. Yeah. grab my friends before they leave. Your friends? Yeah, I saw my friends in the audience. I have friends. Are you saying I don't have friends? What?
No, I thought you said.
Damn. Damn.
It's gone.